Member for Euroa.
Thank you, Speaker. It has been the honour of a lifetime to serve in this place as the first member for Euroa. I will always be indebted to our community for putting their faith in me as a young 28-year-old, and many at the time said I looked 18 and wondered if I could vote. But I leave Parliament optimistic about the future of our region. I've always believed that our greatest strength is our people. I feel so privileged to have been invited into people's homes and into their lives, often in the most difficult of times. We've confronted bushfires, floods, a pandemic, and in the face of it all, we've gotten up, dusted ourselves off and kept going. More importantly, we've looked out for one another. I think about people like Barb Radford, who's devoted her time to helping families in crisis, and Ivan Lister, our rural outreach worker who spends his days checking in on people just to make sure they're doing okay. They are just two of the many extraordinary people who call our region home. When I started this job, I wanted to solve everything immediately, and it took me a while to realise that real change can only be achieved when you bring people with you. I'm proud of what we've achieved in the past 8 years, but anything I might have achieved has been done in partnership with my community. Of course, there are always a few constituents who drive you nuts. No one has worked harder to support me during election campaigns than my predecessor, Bill Sykes. A few weeks ago, he offered me one of his better pieces of advice. Steph, you can tell at least 12 people to get stuffed on the way out the door, in slightly different Bill words. I have been happy to hear the complaints about the can opener that wasn't up to scratch, the lukewarm temperature of the residents' hot water system, and more recently, the slightly too strong scent of the air freshener at the local pool. And I've always done my best to assist. But today, there is one person I am going to tell to get stuffed. Her name is Marg Ryan, and no, she is not related to me. Marg moved into my electorate just before COVID. She contacted me in the middle of lockdowns among all those restriction changes with the most ridiculous questions. Knowing how stressed people were, I spent literally hours poring over those bloody regulations in an effort to give Marg accurate answers. But after providing a detailed response and another detailed response, I would still receive tetchy emails. I made representations on her behalf to the Federal Treasurer about her concerns that she was not eligible for JobKeeper. To the former member for Kooyong, I am deeply sorry. But it was when Marg sent me an email asking how many intimate partners she was allowed to visit under the government regulations that I almost broke. Marg, quite honestly, made me question what I was doing with my life. After a while, she went away. Until 2 months ago, in a momentary lapse of memory, the member for Gippsland East revealed himself as Marg. Marg is currently corresponding with her local dog groomer in Bairnsdale. She's outraged that she will not agree to groom her Dorset sheep, her alpacas, her guinea pigs and a goldfish. I will admit that it has not all been one-way traffic. Marg came into being shortly after Bully sent Chris Waller an email to inquire what COVID-safe measures he was putting in place around his stables to protect his Cox Plate prospect. He was deeply concerned after reading that horses could attract COVID. When the Shadow Minister received a very detailed reply from that prominent trainer the next day during question time, he looked at me and his eyes almost popped out of his head. It was the only time in 8 years that I honestly wished I wasn't sitting next to him. And I think after that question time, I fled the chamber rather quickly. The hardest thing about leaving Parliament is leaving the camaraderie of our party room. Peter Walsh is one of the giants of our party. His leadership has kept our party room together. No one has worked harder to get more women into our party than Walshy, and I know he will be a fantastic Deputy Premier. Walshy's often repeated mantra that if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room, is a wisdom that I'll take with me into my next chapter. Killa is a fighter, and I can't wait to see what she does. Danny is one of the kindest and most considerate people I know. Macca is one of the humblest and the hardest working, and people underestimate him at their peril. Bully, I will miss our pranks on each other, and also on Kim, though he remains oblivious to most of them. Melina, you are a glorious human being, and I knew I would cry when I got to you. I love you to bits. You care and you invest so deeply in the party and its future. Beyond the party room, I've been supported by an amazing network of volunteers and members. People like Nanny Marie, Neil Pankhurst, Darren Chester, drummy of course, although sometimes it's debatable whether it was support or not. And local branch members including Frank Dean, the indomitable Bruce Nichols, Maureen Cottam, Jim and Margaret Brooke, Kevin Cooper, Ian Smith and James Brooke, and so many others. During my 15-year journey in and around this place, I've had the privilege of working with some wonderfully talented and caring humans, all of whom have shaped me. Wendy Nolan was responsible for bringing me into the party 15 years ago, and Paul Weller gave me my first job in politics. Peter Ryan gave me the next one. My career has intersected with incredible people. Catherine Horsfall, Ben Hindmarsh, Luke O'Sullivan, Deb Cole, all one-time colleagues, but more importantly, trusted friends and great sources of advice. I'm also so grateful for the assistance and friendship of the staff we've had in the Leader's Office and Head Office who have supported me during the time I was Deputy Leader. Em, Royce and Gina, Kate, Laz, Paul, Callie, Alex, Sharon, and our wonderful Jess. We lived through the pressure cooker of premiers, through the Nanny State number plate saga, more Poopner, incoming and outgoing press conferences, and Ted's cryptic sense of humour. And then there was my time with Kim, where he came to love my clicking pens and I his meticulous lists. On one particularly memorable outing, he left me behind in Geelong because I refused to call a press conference that, in my estimation, was a suicide mission, and I would still say that it was.
No, it wasn't.
But over the last 8 years, I also count myself very lucky to have employed some wonderful staff. Rachel Tharrett and Lyndall O'Sullivan, you two inspired and motivated me every day. You brought enthusiasm, energy and joy. Our tour of 28 towns in 24 hours across the electorate at the last election will always be a highlight for me. And I'm so proud to see the careers you are now carving. I love you both dearly. And to my current crew, what a team. I will miss the debates where Caitlin and Mitch inevitably line up on opposite sides, Adam's random costume purchases, and Lois's swear jar, which is overflowing. Because of us, not because of her, mind you. I should point that out. I don't want to defame Lois, who is perfect. Mitch Idder has one of the sharpest minds I've ever come across. Adam Scott is the epitome of charm. There is nobody who doesn't love him. And they have been the perfect team. They both have very big futures wherever they go next. Thank you for your loyalty, your hard work, and the laughs. Caitlin Putt has given me amazing continuity through changes in the office, while Lois Tharrett has been the calm through every storm. I also want to thank the wonderful parliamentary staff for the support they've provided over the last 8 years. Bridget, I am in awe of the work that you do and your achievement as the first female clerk of the Assembly. I want most particularly to thank Adam in security, with whom I've developed a very strong rapport with my almost daily visits for a new pass. When I was first elected in 2014, I received a letter from Tim Fisher with his top 10 tips for surviving politics. Tip number 1, on entering Parliament, write down 10 names of the close non-political friends you want to still have at the end of your career, and if you've not made contact with them by Cup Day each year, you initiate contact to keep the friendship alive. At the time, I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. I've been so lucky to have friends who've stuck by me when I haven't always had the time or the headspace to respond. The Pondettes, Moni, Lauren, Mickey and Flood, you are my oldest and dearest friends and you've never wavered in your support for me. I know our friendship has sometimes felt one-sided, but I'm so looking forward to spending more time with you. Mickey, I still haven't met your two beautiful girls. Juz, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you when you were terribly sick half a world away. Hugh and Ben, I'll always regret missing your wedding. Smythe and Dunlop, I've just missed you and I just really want to see a lot more of you. More dinners and more wine. And to the comrades, thank you for your support and your love. Overseas group holidays are back on the agenda. Jared and Sandra, I simply don't have the words to thank you for all you've done for us. You are generous to a fault and you are like family to us. To Nina and John, Dave and Annabelle, Jim and Lauren, you've all been wonderful mates. And now for the teary bit. Brad, hand me the tissues. Wearing mascara was a terrible mistake. I am eternally grateful to my beautiful parents, Paul and Jenny, who have given so much love and support. We truly could not have managed without Mama and Pa. Lizzie and Philip, thank you for your belief, your quiet encouragement, and for always turning yourselves inside out to help us. My wonderful siblings, Luke and Dave, and most particularly to my sister Tasha. Without her, I would in all likelihood still be single. I might also be homeless. She designed our house. She planned and organised my entire wedding. And had she been called upon to do so, I'm sure she would have stepped in to play me when I couldn't get away from Parliament in time to make my own wedding rehearsal. Above all, she's been the most enormous emotional support for me, and I love the three of them so very much. And finally to Tig and Sunday. From the moment that I plucked up the courage to hit reply to an email Tig sent to the Premier's media team titled Tim Holding on 774, to ask him out to today, our life has never known anything but politics. In my defence, when we met, I didn't know he was a member of the Labor Party. All I knew was that he had the warmest smile and the kindest heart of anyone I'd ever met, ripping taste in music too. It took another year before he relented to my single-minded determination, by the way. Always the one to uphold the highest ethical standards, he believed it was inappropriate for a public servant to date a political staffer. This week, I've thought back to the moment Tig said to me, "You should do it. Think of the change that you can make." It sticks in my mind like it was yesterday. He stepped back to let me into public life. If I had not, it could very well have been him, and I know that he will hate me for saying that. The last 8 years has brought so much change in our lives. The year after I was elected, we got engaged, then married, we built our first home, and most importantly, and life-changing of all, we had one beautiful baby, and we lost another. Tig and Sunny, I love you too, above all else. And I'm so very excited for the next phase of our lives together, one where I'm around more. Today simply marks the end of one chapter in my career and the beginning of another. Last week, when I got home from Parliament, we danced around the living room to Talking Heads. Naive Melody is currently Sunny's favourite song, for which I'm grateful because I was getting pretty sick of the Wiggles. And it's mine too. Home is where I want to be. If someone asks, this is where I'll be. Thank you.